Today we're going to be talking about Saturn in Leo and what this placement means to each of the houses. So with that being said, what Saturn shows is it shows fears, limitations, hard work, patience, karma, and responsibility. Saturn is the planet of doom and gloom. Saturn is about things being boring, mundane, or requiring hard work. Saturn and Leo folks have to work hard to develop their confidence in a certain area of life, because Leo is about confidence. It's about capabilities. It can be about healthy self-delusion, feeling very confident about one's abilities. And it's about attracting the spotlight, being the center of attention. So Saturn in Leo can show fears around performing well and fears around having the attention of others on them. And generally speaking, since Saturn shows karma, especially karma from past life actions, this can show karma around ego. So perhaps in a past life, you abused your confidence, or you utilized your role, your position in a way that was unfair to others. Or perhaps in a past life, you didn't have enough confidence, it was actually, starting to affect your well-being and whatnot. So it can really be either side of the coin. But the point is, people with Saturn and Leo, they have lessons to learn around confidence in this lifetime. It's like they have to build up success or proof in order to validate themselves, because Saturn is about working hard and it's about material success. It's about recognition, fame. So a lot of times they feel like they need to have proof in order to feel good about themselves. So Saturn in Leo can give somebody an ambitious nature. Leo is a fire sign, and fire is about energy. And so the one positive of this so far is that Saturn is given energy of ambition, because they feel like their confidence, their self-worth comes from their successes in life. But if they don't have any success or recognition, they struggle from having fears or limitations around their self-worth. They, in this lifetime, due to karma or whatnot, they cannot be cocky or delusional for no reason, or Saturn knocks them on their ass. Events manifest that humble them or remind them they need something to show to back up their self-concept. So that was where the real source of the karma really comes from. And maybe this is something that's passed down generationally. So sometimes placements that we have can be from past lives, or they can just be family karma. We can be born with the traits of our genetics and our ancestors, especially a very specific one that we may or may not know about. But there was something about self-delusion and cockiness in a past life where maybe they felt better about themselves than they realistically should have, because they didn't really have the proof or the success to back up their ego, but yet they allowed themselves to feel above others or talk down on others, and maybe they were able to pull off that image in a past life or in their life. And then maybe that was a theme of a past life. And if you resonate with that, then you know that it was from a past life. If when I say that it resonates with feelings or actions that seem to make sense with your current situation, then that means you're on the right trail. That's how you get in touch with past life regression and whatnot. But there are specialists on past life regression. And with that being said, I also do past life regression. So if that interests you in an astrology sense, and you want me to look at your chart and see your past life story, where you're coming from and what your soul wants to achieve in this lifetime, then definitely consider sending me a email in the email in the description for a single question reading about past lives. I also offer other types of readings. So before we continue, I'm just gonna briefly talk about the natal chart readings that I provide. I'm interrupting this video with a brief mid-roll promotion. I wanted to talk to you guys about readings. I'm currently doing natal chart readings and interpretations. So if you would like a personalized video reading that is private and only sent to you, covering your personality, your talents, as well as your financial astrology, and then your destiny or your soul's purpose, which would be based on the North Node placement and the rulers of that, then check the email in my description, which is readings@astroseri.com, and go ahead and send me an email if you would be interested in booking a reading. Let me know which type of reading that you're interested in, and we will work things out from there. With that being said, let's get back into the topic of this video. Thank you. All right. So thanks for sitting through that promotion. With that being said, what we were talking about is that they cannot be delusional or cocky for no reason when somebody has Saturn in Leo, because events will manifest that humble them or remind them that they need something to show to back up their self-concept. Another trait of Saturn in Leo is they could worry about how they will be received, or it could like by others, like how their actions will be received, and whether they're capable of various different things depending on the house that Saturn is in, which shows the area of life that the confidence or the karma is in. Or it could just simply be the way that they were disciplined growing up that shifted that stifled their confidence or didn't allow them for a positive self-concept. And now as adults, they maintain this humble or pessimistic mindset about themselves, like this overly humble mindset. Now they may have that mindset to humble themselves or be doubtful of their capabilities as adults. In any case, Saturn in Leo can be summarized to someone that has to work hard to establish their confidence, and they have to do self-development in life to get to a position where they develop a healthy self-concept. Because Saturn's about hard work, and when it's in Leo, this is about ourselves, this is about our character. So there's a lot of character development and ego transformation required in this lifetime if you have Saturn in Leo, but it's all to make you a better, more impactful, more important, and more admirable person, because Saturn brings great success, and Saturn brings an unbreakable ego once the hard work has been put in, because you become in touch with the meanings and the lessons of what it means to truly have confidence and to truly believe in yourself, Now, other random traits of Saturn and Leo is that since Leo's about energy, it's a fixed fire sign and it's ruled by the sun, the source of energy here on this planet. Fixed is about a constant way of being. So that's why the fixed signs can be stubborn. Like Taurus is fixed earth. This is about objects, material things. They don't change. They're hard headed. Scorpio is about fixed emotions because it's a water sign. It's about emotions that don't change. Depression, darkness, fear, debt, recurring things that come back to you and haunt you. And then finally, we have Aquarius. This is about not changing your logic. This is about having common sense, intelligence, reasoning, always thinking in a stable and consistent way. So that makes very intelligent people. But finally, Leo is about fixed fire. This is about constantly acting a certain way. This is about confidence. People that act the same no matter which environment they're in or who they're surrounded by tend to come across to others as leaders. And that's what the true definition of confidence is. It's about not changing who you are for others, not changing who you are circumstantially. Also, Leo is about having high energy too. So Leo people tend to have a tendency not to change themselves for others, but also to have a higher than normal energy or expression about themselves, which doesn't change. So that makes them stand out in many environments, and that's what appears to others as confidence. But with that being said, Leo is all about energy because is ruled by the sun. It's a fixed fire sign, meaning our constant state of energy or action. So hopefully that little tangent, that little lesson on astrology was helpful. I know some of you guys can apply it now to your charts and where you have Leo but in your chart. But with that being said, when you have Saturn here, then the other trait is that it can show somebody that's conservative of their energy. They can have less fun and be more serious or more work-oriented. They may channel their energy more through Saturn things like self-development, working hard, doing practical and responsible things. Finally, since Leo is about self-expression, being seen and claiming the spotlight, not just attracting spotlight. It's about claiming it and then attracting it. And Saturn limits things. This shows somebody that's not as expressive or vulnerable. Having Saturn here, can show somebody that's not as expressive or vulnerable. And it can show fears regarding factors being out of your control, affecting your capability. Or it could have to do with psychological factors. There's deep psychological healing that is having to do with ego and confidence and self-worth. And the reason why is because Saturn, when it's in Leo, is in the 8th house from Capricorn, which is its sign of rulership. The 8th house is about having to go through transformation. So for one, people with Saturn Leo will have to go through ego death at some point in their life, or they will or they have, at least at one point. And this was a death to their outdated or previous self-concept. And this was like a transformation to their ego and self-concept through humbling scenarios that force them to shed their skin and let go of self-concepts that they may be stubbornly attached to. And then next, Saturn is in the 7th from Aquarius, and Saturn traditionally was Aquarius. So there's an influence of 7th house energy. And Saturn in Leo, since it can limit energy and sense of capability, can show somebody early on in life that is not as independent. And in general, like even in their adult life, they tend to be more interdependent. They're more humble people. They do that in order to be agreeable and likable towards others, or that's how they feel they need to be liked by others. They feel like they can't be too cocky sometimes, and they can't feel good about themselves, which is not a true statement. And that's a lesson that they'll learn in this lifetime. But generally speaking, Saturn and Leo people are agreeable, trustworthy. Now we're going to talk about what this placement means through each of the houses. So check the timestamps in the description to see which house that you have Saturn and Leo in, or the person that you're watching for. With that being said, the first house. If you have Saturn and Leo in the first house, this is about having to manifest results through hard work. Saturn in the first house can make it slower or harder to achieve our objectives, because the first house is very impulsive and it's about doing things and having immediately good results. So if you're having a Saturn transit in the first house, what you'll notice is that the results of your actions may require more consistency or discipline or hard work before you reap the benefit. And I can say that from firsthand because I'm having Saturn transit my first house at this current moment, and it's perhaps a topic for a video that I can talk about. Saturn in the first house can also make us more realistic about our actions or our capabilities, and it shows somebody with a more careful or disciplined approach to life, sometimes even a fearful approach to life. And Saturn can really box you in when it's in the first house. You could be somebody that feels very constricted or really trapped in energetically or circumstantially, because the first house is about our experience, like our firsthand experience. So when Saturn, the planet of limitations, is there, it can feel like a lot of times we're weighed down by barriers, limitations, or walls, oftentimes in the form of responsibilities. Since Leo's about energy, and it shows people that have to work hard in order to develop themselves and their sense of identity. Well, actually, their sense of confidence. But in the first house, this is about developing your sense of identity and having to do self-development as well. Having to manifest results through applying your energy very aggressively towards a goal and very persistently. Furthermore, since Saturn in Leo is about a wounded ego, or it's about having to develop one's confidence through challenging situations and a lot of times being knocked on your ass. Whenever you try to feel confident but you don't have the reputation or the accolades, since it's in the first house, this is showing that your wounded ego becomes a part of your identity and manifests through your actions and how you present yourself in the world. And this could be in subconscious ways. Your lack of confidence can be a part of your personality or your identity. This aspect of it can suck. There may be subconscious things about your ego that play out subconsciously through your actions and stuff like that. But the first house is about our intentions and being assertive. So generally speaking, people with Saturn in the first house may be less direct or less assertive and have a more careful, steady approach to doing things. And they're more in control of their impulses and whatnot. And since it's about Leo, this is having to do with sense of capability or confidence sometimes, or just psychological factors, because Saturn is in the 8th sign from its own sign when it's in Leo. So it can be aspects of your psychology in some way. That is the first house. Next, we're going to talk about the second house. When Saturn is in Leo in the second house, this is about fears around financial capabilities and worth. And in this life, you're meant to work hard in order to increase your worth, increase your self-confidence, and go through transformations about your self-concept and your self-worth and your success. But generally in life, they start out careful of how they expend their energy and their resources all throughout life, even when they become more successful and more older, these individuals will have a tendency to be stingy or frugal. Not always stingy, because maybe they have, generosity in other ways, but like they would definitely be frugal when it comes to their own decisions. Saturn being in your second house in Leo can make your stability psychologically feel like it's out of your control, just due to a lot of factors that feel like they can get out of your control. And like sometimes you doubt your self-worth and your own capabilities, so that this leads you to feel like a lot of things are out of your control, especially things regarding worth, things regarding income, finances, etc. So this may be some deep, soul level like realization that you have from this video. Basically, like if you do struggle from financial difficulties, sometimes it can be a manifestation of not valuing yourself actually enough. And therefore, that's subconsciously creating this feeling that your worth and your finances are out of your control because you're not somebody of worth. In this lifetime, though, you're meant to develop that through hard work and discipline. So Saturn in Leo in the second house can show a diminished ego and confidence relating to self-esteem. So that's really how it can be summarized. Next, let's talk about the third house placement of Saturn. When Saturn is in Leo in the first house, this is about communication. So there can be fears around the ability to communicate effectively or impactfully, fear of public speaking or speaking to crowds especially. Leo's about being on stage, being in the spotlight. Saturn is about fears, and the third house is about communication. So if you're wondering where that potential fear that some of you guys could have is coming from of public speaking, then is coming likely from this placement. But you guys are learning to become effective communicators, to develop confidence in your ability to communicate loudly, effectively, clearly, and influentially. So generally speaking, is really Saturn in the third house is showing somebody that can be a man or a woman of few words. I don't feel like it's as strong in Leo. I feel like these people only become men or women of few words when it comes to speaking in front of crowds, or public speaking. When it doesn't come to performing or being in the spotlight, they may be more comfortable, talkative, communicative, or etc. But Saturn here in the third house in Leo is really showing some sort of fear around the mind or communication that is related to confidence or capability. The third house is about the mind and being self-critical when Saturn is in here. So there could be self-critical ways of thinking about one's capabilities or like their self-concept. With that being said, that leads us to the fourth house. When Saturn is in Leo in the fourth house, this can be about pessimistic self-worth or confidence due to the lack of attention that you received in upbringing. The fourth house is about our upbringing. Leo is about attention and validation. And the fourth house is also about our relationship to our mother especially. So maybe you didn't feel as validated as you needed to as a child. And Saturn in Leo in the fourth house often manifests as this reluctance to be vulnerable due to limited self-confidence around your approach being well received. The fourth house is about things that are internal, so a lot of times the upbringing could have caused internal or private wounds to your confidence or to your sense of capability. It can be more of an emotional thing because the fourth house can be about emotions. And generally speaking, since Saturn restricts things and the fourth house is about emotions and warmth, being vulnerable to a certain extent with certain people, this can show reluctance to be vulnerable due to not feeling worthy of nurture, not feeling worthy of care and etc. Not feeling like you can depend on the energy of somebody else or something like this. Not recognizing your own worth, because you do have a lot of worth, but Saturn in the fourth house in Leo may cause you to feel like you don't have as much worth, and this affects your ability to be vulnerable or whatnot. So that leads us to the fifth house. If you have Saturn and Leo in the fifth house, a lot of times this is having to do with limitation to confidence or self-expression due to challenges or the way that you experience your upbringing and whatnot. It could also be having to do with past life karma and whatnot. But the fifth house is about our confidence and our self-expression, about our value to others. So for whatever reason, Saturn here causes pessimism around one's value to others. And it feels like your value to others is hard to come by. Like It feels like you have to work really hard to be validated or recognized by others when you have this placement. And again, Saturn being about karma, when it's in the 5th house, this is definitely karma around ego. Finally, it could show limited energy or limited expenditure of your energy. You may be less of a spendy person. You may be less of a energetic, loud, expressive person as you can be, because Saturn causes us to conserve our energy. So next, let's talk about Saturn and Leo in the 6th house. The 6th house is about criticism, details, organization, perfectionism, etc. So there can be a tendency of perfectionism that affects your confidence when Saturn is in the 6th house, or a tendency to be self-critical of yourself that affects your confidence, and maybe self-critical of your own capabilities. A tendency to notice flaws in your character rather than positive traits of it. I forgot what the word is for that. You tend to notice flaws instead of qualities of yourself, maybe. This could be a tendency to notice flaws in your character, your expression, or your capabilities. Having a strict form of perfectionism that causes you to be more careful, to be less expressive, to be more humble, etc. In this lifetime, you manifest a lot of responsibilities, perhaps revolving work too, because Saturn's about responsibilities and hard work. And in the 6th house, this is about our day-to-day life, our routine, our jobs. So these people can have hard-working jobs where they have to expend their energy a lot, or where their responsibilities drain their energy, or something like this. Next, this leads us to the 7th house. Saturn in Leo in the 7th house is exalted in the 7th house. But Saturn doesn't do so well in Leo because Leo is the opposite sign of what the sign that Saturn traditionally rules, which is Aquarius. And just Saturn, is not very good in like fire signs because it limits our energy and whatnot. So with Saturn and Leo in the 7th house, you may have a tendency to humble yourselves in order to be more relatable, likable, or agreeable by others. Generally speaking, you will be quite likable, charming, or agreeable to other people, but you may humble yourself too much, and it may be limiting to your own self-confidence, to your own self-worth, and your own self-identity. Saturn in Leo is about conserving energy, and it's about the use of energy. In the 7th house, this shows somebody that expends a lot of their energy and themselves on commitments that they've made to others and on responsibilities. Quite responsible and trustworthy people to their word, because Saturn is exalted in the 7th house. The 7th house is about agreements and relationships to others and how we relate to other people. People with Saturn in the 7th house tend to have a responsible, disciplined, or practical way of relating to others that is trustworthy or predictable or definite. On the other hand, sometimes with this placement in Leo in the 7th house, sometimes it's difficult for you to feel self-reliant. That's how it feels within your self-concept, because Saturn in Leo in the 7th house can indicate this need for the approval of others in order to feel good about yourself because of limited self-confidence or some sort of wounds, fears, or insecurities around the ego. And 7th house is about being relatable. And so the trait of this placement is that you tend to humble yourself in order to be more liked and agreeable. But the downside is, the other aspect is that this placement can show this need for the approval of others to feel good about yourself or to feel capable. And it could just really be having to do with your self-concept. Sometimes I guess you guys can be self-reliant, like, normal way, like a mundane kind of like in normal ways, like taking care of yourself, taking care of your responsibilities, etc. But it's like your confidence is not self-reliant, if that makes any sense. Finally, this placement can show somebody that's more cold or serious due to fear of interpersonal rejection at times. And this could be having to do with fears or wounds around one's confidence or the ego that stem from childhood and whatnot. But the 7th house is all about charm and likability. These individuals, sometimes they doubt their ability to be liked or to charm others, but for the most part, people find you quite agreeable, trustworthy, and relatable. But you constantly seek that approval that you are somebody of worth, perhaps. With that being said, that leads us to the 8th house placement of Saturn in Leo. The 8th house can be about deep fears or wounds to the ego when it's in Leo, because the 8th house is about depth and it's about psychology. Saturn is about fear, so there could be fears around sense of confidence or capability due to certain things that you perceive being out of your control. Because the 8th house is also about complications, power struggles, and situations that force us to let go or to transform, especially if they're unhealthy, you know, for us, and we need to like upgrade ourselves and get to a better state. But the 8th house is just about things being out of our control. It's about power struggles, and that's where power struggles stem from, is like two people fighting for resources or things that they perceive that they need to compete in order to have possession of. Saturn and Leo in the 8th house can be summarized as somebody that has to go through forced ego transformations at some point in their life, or maybe at multiple points, where factors that are out of their control or factors relating to their psychology are forcing them to make changes to their self-concept or to their ego. Or maybe it could be the loss of something or someone. But I feel like it could be like it just circumstances that cause you to go through self-concept changes, because 8th house is about transformation. Saturn is about responsibilities or things that can feel limiting. So sometimes these transformations feel like they're unfavorable, or feel like they are like a form of responsibility, or like a pain, or not so much a pain, but like a burden that you don't want to really deal with at the time, but it just happens anyways, you know? But with that being said, if Capricorn rules your second house, like if your second house is in Capricorn, a lot of the fears of things being out of your control are due the concepts of worth or self-esteem, or it could be about finances. So this placement can show feeling like your stability is out of your control. Saturn is your chart ruler, meaning if you have Capricorn in the first house, Saturn represents an aspect of you. That placement of Leo in the 8th house shows somebody that's driven to upgrade themselves, driven to transform themselves and do a lot of self-development. And they are motivated to attract recognition, attention, or validation. They want to attract success. They want to become successful. So that's because the 8th house can show motivation as well and desire. So it can show this desire for validation, especially if it's your chart ruler, this desire to succeed. In a general sense, regardless of which house you have Capricorn in, Saturn in the 8th house, which is about psychology, can show psychological fears or shadow work that needs to be done in order to alleviate the limitations to your self-confidence, your self-expression, or to your ego, or to your energy. Because the 8th house is about psychological factors, you know, deep, complex things or assumptions or perceptions that we have that are subconscious to us. And so these could be causing the limitations to your sense of worth, if that's something that you experience, or it could be caused by your ego concept. That leads us to the next house, which is the 9th house. Saturn and Leo can limit one's energy, sense of confidence, or sense of capability due to lack of faith, purpose, or direction, or philosophy when it's in the 9th house. Because Saturn restricts things when it's in the 9th house. This can show somebody that has a more pessimistic view of religions, more pessimistic view of belief and faith. They're more reluctant or faithful when it comes to believing things in general. And since the 9th house is about inspiration and optimism, Saturn can sometimes limit or like decrease one's optimism or sense of direction or inspiration when it's in the 9th house. Instead, they are more guided by practical pathways or like practical philosophies or material success and ambitions. You know, they're more realistic minded people, and they seek to get to a respectable position in life. You know, that's their main guidance, you know. But in a spiritual sense or philosophical sense, there can be a limited faith. So a lot of times having Saturn in Leo in this house can show that the lack of confidence is due to not having a strong sense of purpose, not feeling like you do, even though you do. Like, we each have a purpose, a reason that we're here, and we each have lessons or personal goals that we're trying to achieve, or that our soul wants to achieve in this lifetime. That's what the North Node is all about in our charts. If you want a reading and you're interested in hearing about your destiny and your North Node, then contact my email in the description and book a reading. That's really where the lack of confidence is doing to, is just because of a limited sense of faith or purpose or philosophy, or just pessimistic about life or about such things. Saturn can dim our inspiration, and since it's in Leo, this is about lack of inspiration in yourself, and that's where the lack of confidence may come from, that you may feel from having this placement, or it may not feel. Sometimes it can manifest in different ways. It can be like your energy levels or stuff like that. Saturn shows somebody that has more realistic or fearful beliefs or perception of or imagination. They're more logical minded people. So again, this affects like their overall energy levels, and this makes them more self-controlled people, more serious perhaps, or like sometimes less expressive and like less confident of themselves, because purpose comes from belief. Purpose comes from having this strong sense of direction or philosophy. And usually in the ninth house, Leo shows it's about our ego. So like our sense of direction plays a strong part of our role that we think that we're here to play, and it's a strong part of where we get our confidence when it's in the ninth house. So it's important for those that have that to have that. And since Saturn limits things, it's showing that that's the source of why your confidence or your energy, like just your passion, can feel a little bit more dimmed, or you feel like you have to work very hard in life for whatever reason to achieve a respectable position or to validate yourself. So Saturn in Leo being in the 10th house, Saturn limits or restricts things, and having it in the sign of confidence and energy can show people that may have a tendency to have to work really hard in order to gain their sense of confidence and in order to validate themselves in the world. Now, the other thing is that Leo can be about energy levels. So Saturn in Leo in the 10th house, it can show, limited. I feel like actually, usually Saturn and Leo could show limited energy, but Saturn does well in the 10th house because it's at home. And Saturn is about ambition. I mean, the 10th house is about ambitions. So is Saturn. So I feel like Saturn and Leo in the 10th house actually shows very hardworking people. But they start out with a limited sense of self-worth and confidence, and they have to really push themselves hard and to achieve success and recognition in order to back up their confidence or to develop themselves. Furthermore, the 10th house is about our reputation and the opinions of others. And when Saturn is in a sign, it can dim that sign, or like it can like kind of put limitations or restrictions on the meanings of that sign. And Leo's about being expressive, outgoing, or like confident. A lot of times Saturn can limit your expression because of fear of the opinions of others when Saturn is in the 10th house or in Leo, or fear of your reputation, like trying to maintain a respectable professional image. So that is Saturn in Leo in the 10th house. It shows fairly serious people, and they are quite ambitious, and they have to work hard in order to validate themselves, and in order to gain the recognition that they feel they deserve, and also to increase their confidence. And their confidence will increase as a function of their success and their achievements. That is Saturn in Leo being in the 10th house. Next, we have the 11th house. So if you have Saturn Leo in the 11th house, the limitation or the karma around confidence, or like the fears around one's sense of capabilities, or the limited energy that this can cause, passion or expressiveness, is because of a more logical, cold, or detached nature that you have. The 11th house is associated with Aquarius. Aquarius can be cold, detached, and logical. It's the opposite sign of Aquarius. When Saturn is in the 11th house, it's in the 12th house from its own. Hold on, let me get this right. It's actually in the 2nd house from its own house. So this can be about self-worth as well. And the 11th house is really about our individuality, what makes us unique. So there can be certain aspects of yourself, especially your individuality, cause you to doubt your self-confidence. And in this lifetime, you're meant to build a good rapport with your individuality, become confident in yourself and your individuality, and work hard on self-development, shadow work even perhaps, in order to get in touch with your true, unique self. Generally speaking, Saturn can show fears or limitations and insecurity, and we each have a Saturn placement in our charts, obviously. So for each of us is different, but in your case of the 11th house and Leo, this is fear or insecurity regarding one's individuality. Needing to embrace such things is really revolving identity and uniqueness for you, and differentiating yourself. Sometimes your lack of confidence or expressiveness is from a fear of differentiating yourself. Or it could be about fears of being ostracized or rejected, because Saturn shows each of our fears. And when it's in air house, this is about social fears in some sense or another. Aquarius is particularly about being an outcast or being ostracized. Aquarius is the rebel and whatnot. So there could be a fear, unreasonable or realistic fear of being ostracized because of being different or unique. You need to know your unique traits are your strengths, not to dim your light. Saturn in the 11th house shows a responsibility towards becoming more self-reliant, rebellious, and authentic, and building esteem in yourself to stand alone and to stand contently in who you are when it's in the 11th house and it's in Leo. And that's where your confidence will build, my friends that have this placement. Last but not least, this leads us to the 12th house. So if you have Saturn and Leo in the 12th house, a lot of the limitations that you feel around your self-concept are coming from assumptions that you make about yourself, and it's really coming from your subconscious self-concept. And a lot of times the 12th house can be about insecurities and imagined flaws, things that we fear that people would notice about us, but they're not really objectively true. Things such as the 12th house can show things such as shyness, for example. So with Saturn being about limitations and being in your 12th house, for some people that have this placement, this can show shyness feeling like a limitation in your life, struggling from lack of confidence and shyness, and that being a limiting factor. And Saturn here is giving you the responsibility to overcome that shyness and to become confident and to actually build a healthy self-concept, like build a optimistic and powerful delusion about who you are. Because the 12th house is about the delusion that each of us has, and delusion creates confidence. Somebody that's confident does not have a reason to be. They just are because of how they perceive themselves. And they will not back down or let other people disrespect how they perceive themselves. So Saturn here being about responsibility is showing having to build that in this lifetime through hard self-development or sometimes shadow work, purging the unhealthy beliefs that you've built from your upbringing and from how you were raised, and from people not giving you the attention or the validation that you needed, which a lot of times can be the case when Saturn's in Leo. But in general, any fears or insecurities or shyness around self-confidence and around taking the stage or performing well, and any fear around your capabilities is really coming from your subconscious, because that's what the 12th is about. And this is about your perception, because the 12th house is about imagination, creativity, and imagination and creativity also play a part of our self-concept and our identity, and our imagination about how life is, how other people are, how we are. These are all very subconscious things that play a very real role in our day-to-day lives and our actions. If you perceive people are mean or people don't like you, these are very subconscious things that can be occurring, that these perceptions can be essentially 12th house is giving us more insight, and showing that Saturn, the fears or the limitations of Saturn are coming from imagined flaws or internal insecurities and things regarding assumptions that you make. So always question your assumptions and try to create a positive self-concept or image, a positive imagination, which can be hard because when Saturn is in the 12th house, and since Saturn is about pessimism, it can show a more pessimistic imagination, a more fearful imagination. Finally, the 12th house can be about hiding. So sometimes you limit your shine, you limit your capabilities, and you avoid the spotlight by hiding your ego or hiding yourself, which is a shame because you're somebody that's very capable. You're somebody with self-worth. And Saturn is really just a perception that's being created, or fears and self-development that has to do to your self-concept that are causing you to hide yourself a lot. Saturn being in the 12th house is also showing fears of the mind. So it's really, whatever limitations are coming is really coming from the mind. And I'm not dismissing the mind. I'm not dismissing the subconscious, because those are actually very real things that we each have to deal with. We each have responsibility over the state of our minds and whatnot. Anyway, Saturn, when it's in the 12th house, is showing fears coming from the mind. So it can be pessimistic thinking, stuff like that, depressive thoughts, negative thoughts. And the 12th house, the next thing about it is it's about sensitivity or shyness, like I was saying. Saturn being here, when it's in the sign of confidence and the sign of self-expression, can show that the limitations to one's confidence that Saturn may cause is really revolving sometimes around the fear of vulnerability, the fear of being sensitive. And since Saturn and Leo can show fears around things being out of our control, like factors being out of our control that cause us to doubt our capabilities, the main fear is about being sabotaged by hidden factors when Saturn is in the 12th house. And that's what causes people to be more fearful or have a more realistic imagination or more pessimistic imagination. They often have an easier time imagining things going wrong than going right. And I feel like that can also apply to confidence when Saturn's in Leo. So when it comes to doing things or to feeling capable, maybe you just have a tendency to like more easily imagine things going wrong than going right. And that's due to the influence of Saturn being there, unfortunately. But it's something that can be overcome, through self-development, hard work, sometimes shadow work, spiritual work, a lot of spiritual self-discipline, healing work, meditation, spending time in solitude and getting to know yourself, getting to understand your thought patterns. Because it's only when you step away from others and step away from the noise of life that you can realize how you really are. That's what spirituality is really about. And it's about overcoming that fear of being alone so that you can experience that spiritual work. That's really what 12th house kind of healing can be about. And stepping away from your self-concept, stepping away from responsibilities and who you think that you need to be in the world on a day-to-day basis, that you avoid spending time to yourself, and discovering how you are. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and that it was insightful. If you did, then don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel for more content and to see your other placements when they come out. If you would like a natal chart reading, then you know where to contact me in my email in the description. With that being said, I appreciate you guys watching, supporting in any way that you do, booking a reading if you do, and I'll talk to you guys sometime soon in another video. Peace.